I am thinking I am going to do some fiberglass for the first time ever. And my target for today is to fiberglass this piece of plywood, which is going to have 2 of the solar panels on it. Then I have another piece that's going to be 3 panels, removable from the roof, so that I can put the panels, either just tilt them on the roof towards the sun for better solar power, or to take them off the roof altogether and put them in the sun while I have the camper in the shade. You can use polyester resin or epoxy to do fiberglass. Most people who are going to put a bunch of fiberglass layers are using polyester resin because apparently it's easier to laminate, it costs less, blah blah blah. I'm using epoxy, which is totally different than polyester resin. And everything I'm going to do is specifically about epoxy. My understanding is I want to put epoxy on the plywood so that it soaks into the plywood and not so much will soak into the plywood when I'm putting on my fiberglass. I'm going to pre-coat the plywood with some epoxy mixed with acetone. The acetone will make it thinner and make it soak in to the plywood. With epoxy, once it cures completely, then adding more epoxy doesn't work very well because it's almost like having 2 layers of plastic and they just don't want to stick together. So I've got my little cheat sheet here of the steps I need to do. And this is all based on what I've found on YouTube. I do not know what I'm doing, but hopefully it all comes together. But my list says that I want to sand the surfaces and around the edges, clean off the surface and the dust and all from sanding with the acetone, mix up some epoxy with acetone that will soak right into the wood and make it waterproof. Then I'm not sure if I have to let that cure some. If I let it cure all the way, I'll probably have to sand again. So I might just try applying the soak-in layer and then immediately go to a layer to pre-coat the surface with regular epoxy. And that's another tip they say, is to put your epoxy on the surface, then put the fiberglass on. Get that all worked in, and I'm going to try to preserve my roller and my brush with more acetone in a bucket or something, because I don't want to be using up rollers and paintbrushes every time I do this. Then I should let that cure a little bit. I don't know how long. Today it's about 80 degrees. I'm going to see how long it is until it's tacky. Then I'm going to try another coat on it to see if I can make it fairly smooth. See if I should let that cure a little bit until it gets tacky. And try what they call a flow coat, which will make it completely smooth, hopefully, so that I don't have to do a lot of sanding before I paint, and the paint will make it look decent. So that's the plan. Let's try it out, see what happens. So, there it is. Let that sit for a little while, and come try some fiberglassing. Woohoo! So, it's a couple hours later. They say it's tacky when you touch it, but it doesn't come off. And I'd say it's not really tacky yet. Come back a little later, we'll check it again. It's pretty tacky, but it's not coming off on the glove. So I think it would be ready for another coat, but I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow. This layer being thinned with the acetone, it probably took longer to get tacky than what it would normally. When I'm actually doing fiberglass, it probably won't take that long. So, came out today, see how it turned out, and it looks pretty good. One thing I learned about epoxy is that when it cures, there's something called an anime blush. No idea what that really means, but apparently it gets some sort of film that is created on the surface, and it's supposed to be no big thing. You don't need anything other than wipe it off with water. No soap or anything involved. And you see some epoxies that say non-blushing. I don't know if the one I have is a non-blushing epoxy. So I'm just going to wipe it all down with water. I just put a couple more hours. I'll come see if I can do a second coat. So, back out taking a look at it. It's been a little over 2 hours. It's not really tacky at all. But I think that means it's too far set to chemically bond another layer. So I should give it a little bit of sanding before I try another coat. All of the glass texture is not gone, but I think the matte part of it can be sanded down pretty smooth. So I'm gonna sand tomorrow, see if it gets smooth, and maybe put another coat on top just to see if I can get it really smooth. But if I just leave it like it is, as Whitney Houston says, how will I know? Make sure it's all evenly distributed. Curing up pretty fast. Or it will. I guess another sanding, and I probably won't sand, but I don't know. We'll see. See you in an hour or so. Still fairly tacky, but it's really not coming off unless I really push on it. So maybe I can do another coat real quick here. A lot of bubbles in there from that first coat. I'm hoping somehow they go away, but maybe, maybe not. It was tacky enough to put another layer on, so you know what? First coat goes on with the glass. Second coat, I think it's called a fill coat. Third coat is the flow coat, to let it flow over the surface. I might actually paint this just to see how the paint and the fiberglass attach and hold up. Just like I'm going to do on the rest of the camper. Peace.